We did it. Hi guys.
So what?
Welcome
Hey guys, we're
to Vadge 8 hours
welcome to
later.
Vadge. Yeah, only a couple of hours later. We miss each other so much.
I don't think we've
So-
done anything. We've taped back to back like this where we've taped, slept, and then taped again.
Well, I've only slept like 2 hours too, so I woke up like a zombie. I just couldn't sleep last night, and then I was watching Amy Schumer's thing on HBO Max.
Oh, expecting Amy?
Yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize. I knew she was pretty sick, like with throwing up and stuff. I didn't know she was that sick. That's kind of sucky.
Oh, I can't imagine just having morning sickness throughout your whole entire pregnancy.
I know, but it gives like a whole new meaning to just making sure I'm taping this. It gives a whole new meaning to not wanting to do shows because you're just not in the mood. But she was like puking her brains out.
I know. What is she doing to us?
But I mean,
Call
she's also
out.
getting paid way more money. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, and she was preparing for a special. But yeah, I was just like, holy crap, man. She was like just puking for hours and then she's in the hospital. It's pretty cool. I actually liked it. I like stuff like that when I know people. I don't know
Yeah.
why. If it's just like, it makes me more interested because I feel like I know them a little bit. But I liked it.
Well,
so
I
was
know
watching that.
You watched Torgasm, and did you get the same feeling because we know some of those people?
Well, okay, this is the problem. Torgasm was filmed, 15 years ago? Okay. So
Yeah.
I would have been able to watch it, but I want to say 3 to 5 minutes, they cut scenes and they would just blast like heavy metal music. And it would be okay if my TV didn't constantly go really high.
Yeah.
So then it's like every 5 minutes I'm like fucking with the volume, and I just lost interest very quickly in it. So
Yeah. Well, it's not really a lot of dynamic, and then the stuff that you're like, you guys should have focused on Dane Cook's psychoticness, and this would have been more fascinating.
But you couldn't.
I
You couldn't
know.
back then. Dane Cook was like a god. I get it. He was super famous, and it is nice of him to kind of showcase his friends. But it did, from what I just watched like 6 minutes. It just showcased like his, I guess, narcissism and stuff. Which I guess, look, if you're that famous and you're selling out Madison Square Garden, it's just like, I guess that gets to your head. But
I know.
I would have watched it without the music. I just couldn't deal with that, making it higher
Yeah.
and lower. It was just like a pain.
Don't you ever wonder what you would turn out to be if you got that extreme level of fame and success? Would you be like, do you think that you would turn into that, or do you think you would do a good job of being self-aware and making sure that you wouldn't?
Well, I feel like I'd probably be more like Tom Segura. Do you know what I mean? Who's like pretty famous, doesn't love the spotlight. Do you know what I mean? Whereas like Bert Kreischer loves it.
Yeah.
I remember when I opened for Ari, Bert was around the corner in Comedy on State is where Ari was, and then Bert was like in the big theater.
Yeah.
And like we were out with Bert, and like first of all, everyone knows who he is. People come over to him, they talk to him, like, and he loves it. That fits him. But if that was me, I would feel a little bit like I wouldn't mind saying hi to people, but it just kind of makes you it would make me feel weird. Would you like that to like? I know Ari doesn't like that either. Do you know what I mean? Like he doesn't like I think he had a opportunity to do a TV show or something. I don't know if I'm making this up.
Who cares?
Maybe. But I know he just doesn't love that limelight where everyone knows who he is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think I would be more like Ari in a sense where it's cool to people that recognize you, but I wouldn't want to be so famous that you couldn't walk down the street without people.
Stopping.
Do you know what I mean? Like, knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like not being able to ever be out with like your friends, and I don't know.
Or when they get mad at you because you don't go visit their like sick second cousin an hour away from where you're at right away. Can you imagine?
Well, now that we have Zoom, though, I feel like it's so much easier to say yes to stuff like that because you're like, I could just Zoom for 5 minutes. But like, yeah, actually driving an hour or two to go visit like a sick friend's dying aunt or something that you don't know. It's like once you get there and say hi, after that, what do you talk about? Like, I get that it's cool for them.
Yeah, you're on your vacation and they're like, hey, it would really mean a lot to my second cousin if before they died, you come over to their house.
And like, do what?
I
You know
know.
what I mean? Like, that's the thing. I'd rather you just tell me, hey, they really want. If I have like a lot of money, I'd rather them say, hey, look, they don't really have a lot of money. Can you just pay for a coffin?
Yeah.
And then we can just get them like a Great Dane coffin and cut them up and put them in it. That's a callback. I don't. I don't know. That's not. I don't know. What do you do when you get there? You're just like, hey, I'm sorry you're dying, and I'm only here because I know you're your cousin.
Yeah, and then you're like, can I get something to drink? I'm really thirsty. Or like, you're like, do you?
And
have,
they're like,
I
I'm fucking dying. They're like, I know, but I'm still thirsty. I walked here.
I know. Or I'd be like, can we watch? I'd ask if we could watch TV in silence, and then I gotta go. Like you get one episode of Seinfeld with me.
That's not a bad idea, but I feel like in that situation, the cousin last minute bails on you, so now you're just there with his sick cousin.
Yeah.
And there's not even an introduction, and they're almost annoyed you're there. You're like, I don't want to be here. Your cousin told me you were a big fan of mine. I remember one time somebody told me their grandmother watched my Letterman set, and he was like, she's a big fan. Can you come to my show and then just like sign this headshot and then also take a picture for her? And I was like, I don't think your grandmother's really a fan of mine. Like, I can't imagine your grandmother's dying to meet me or get a signed photo. It just seems crazy to me. Maybe, but it's just like, okay, maybe. It's nice, but I can't imagine she'd like the real me. Do you know what I mean? Like, Letterman is a watered down set of what you would like, you know?
Well, that's like sometimes when you do meet and greets after your show, sometimes I worry the longer that they hang out with me, the more they realize that I'm not exciting and that I might be quite standoffish, that I'm never going to live to their expectation of what they think I am because of doing stand-up.
Yeah, I guess like, I think if somebody was a fan of the podcast, that would make more sense because you really do get a better sense of who somebody is. Whereas like somebody's stand up, like perfect example is like me and you were like, look at Jim Gaffigan last night was like going nuts on Twitter, like hating Trump and stuff. And people don't probably really know that about him. Do you know what I mean? They just know the Hot Pockets thing. So like if they got to know him, they may not. Like there were people asked, and look, I think it's great he did that, but like people were just like, I'm not your fan anymore. You lost me as a fan. And I just feel like if people listen to your podcast, they probably know you a little bit better than just stand up. So
yeah, because Jim Gaffigan's so clean that I bet you there's half of his followers
for sure
are probably Trump Pence voters. And with him tweeting 20 tweets last night being anti-Trump, that is probably quite a bit of a shock to his fan base.
I'm sure there's people that have no idea. I mean, somebody brought up a good point, though. They're like, most artists are liberal, which I think is true, especially for comics. There are definitely some to the right, or you know what I mean? But
Pat Dixon, Cumia.
Pat Dixon, Cumia, Dennis Miller.
Yeah. Ben Owen. And there's quite a bit.
Yeah.
But majority, I think, lean left for sure.
The majority lean left, yeah. And somebody was like, the fact that like you thought he was like a Republican is just kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think like those people, if Jim had a podcast, it might come up that he is to the left. Do you know what I mean? Whereas like with your stand-up, you can just avoid it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I've gotten a few times, like I remember I did that shitty gig when that restaurant where that guy makes you want to come there an hour early and eat a meal, and you just eat it. Like I remember I ate it, but this couple was really nice, and they were like, oh, we just were appreciative that you didn't talk about political stuff or like Aileen, was bipolar or polarizing. And I do prefer to not make it known what my beliefs are on stage, only because I feel like I can't handle groans from both sides or that kind of anger.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And I don't write that
at once.
I don't write that way. I mean, if I do have a joke that is like that, usually it can fall on both sides, I think. Like I think you and I both make fun of both sides.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny because I went to go see my gynecologist for the last time because he's retiring. Did I tell you this?
I thought you meant because he plays Fox News in the living room, in the waiting room.
Oh no, I wouldn't care about. I mean, I only care about because I don't
Yeah.
want to hear any politics when you're like gonna go get your vagina looked at. But
Yeah.
so I'm in there and I'm talking to him and he's asking me about stand up, and I said, well, you know, I did this thing on Netflix in January that came out, and he was like, oh, let me look at it. So he brings it up while I'm in his office, and I was like, look, I don't want to watch it with you. I said, but call me up. I said, call me up after and let me know what you think. So he calls me up, and like me and him, I got into a fight with his wife about that, Trump thing, whatever, Fox News. And he's like, well, after watching your act, he goes, you're actually somewhat conservative, or like, and I was like, well, I feel like I'm more in the middle. Like, just because I don't like Trump doesn't mean I hate people on the right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and also, I think I'm probably, I think he thought what my comedy was going to be all about, I don't know, like shitting on the right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think he thought that's what my comedy was going to be. And I'm like, well, that's not what I was going to talk about. So I don't know what he was expecting. It's just weird because he was like, well, you're somewhat conservative. I was like, I don't know if that's true. But I just don't think I'm attacking the right, which I think is what he thought.
Yeah.
And then he said to me, he goes, because then he started critiquing my act. And he told me that he goes, well, I don't think the pedophile jokes, he said something like he wasn't a fan of those jokes. And I was like, well, were you not a fan of also the school shooting jokes? And he said, no, those were fine. And I guess it's because he's probably very pro-gun, which is hilarious to me.
No, isn't that so fascinating? My mom was telling me a story about when she lived in, growing up in South Africa, and there was a lot of Jewish population moved down to South Africa during the war, or after, and even before, when they were escaping, going to camps. And one of her friends said she was having an argument. He was in the Holocaust, and he still couldn't see how the Jews were treated were the same ways that blacks are being treated. Isn't that fascinating?
Well, I think everyone likes to think their struggle is the worst.
Yeah, but he was like, I mean, the atrocities of the Jewish people was awful, but he couldn't be like, instead of being like, oh yeah, we shouldn't be treating blacks this way as well. He was like, oh, well, that's a different situation. And I was like, that's insane that you're not a human rights person when you just came out of when you've survived the Holocaust.
Yeah, that's a weird hot take. Well, it's funny too. People were bringing up that on Jim's thing, they were like, "Well, you guys are against cancel culture, and now you're mad at Jim for having these, political beliefs." And they're like, "It's just like the hypocrisy of it."
I know, but it's crazy. Like Twitter is totally different than doing something on stage. Like, it's not like
But
Jim's doing this. Yeah.
People don't. It's just so weird to me where like if somebody has a different political belief. I guess because he's kind of shitting on Trump, that's why they're upset. But it's like, if you think he's funny, but I guess that's how like weirdly politicized we've become. Whereas I don't remember this type of hate for one side before ever. Like,
No.
The closest was Bush, and it was not like this at all. Like, I don't think people, I don't know. I think even now a lot of people on the right also don't like Trump. One thing he said, too, is something I've said this whole time. I'm like, Trump is not a Republican.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, he was a Democrat. Like, I think he's just trying to, he's a con man, which is probably a good way of what he said.
He wants to win.
He's basically just, he wants to win, and he wants to push his own agenda, and he wants to be able to get away with shit. But he is from New York City. I don't think he gives it, I think he was for gay marriage. You know what I mean? Like, all that stuff is bullshit. I think he's just a con man and wants to do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've always joked of like how he's anti-abortion now, where you're like,
He definitely
he's paid for a lot.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he was bringing up. He was like, he's a con man. And I was like, that's a good way to explain him. He's paid for a ton of abortions. He also said that he has multiple rapes. I don't know. So I was just like, it was weird to see. I mean, and then there were also people, too, who were like, well, I just became a fan of yours because of this. So I don't think he's going to have a bad, like, I don't think a lot of people are going to not be his fan. Usually stuff like that makes people get more fans.
Yeah. I don't think it hurts at all. And yeah, and it definitely, and then you weed out those crazies that can't let you have your own political beliefs and be able to do like your stand up, which is different than which doesn't acknowledge what you're tweeting, where you're like, I can differentiate those. There's a lot of people that I'm like, well, that's a crackhead way of thinking, but I really enjoy them as an actor or like a performer. I mean, like, let's just think of, we're all accepting of Michael Jackson rapes when we listen to all of his music.
Yeah. I mean,
like, so if you can't get over Jim Gaffigan's political beliefs, you're like, I know you jam out to Michael Jackson when he's on.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I had that joke about still listening to R. Kelly. Like, I think he's an awful human being, but he does make some good music. Yeah, it is weird to just be like, well, now there's something about this election that is just really splitting people. So it's weird. Do you think he will win? I don't think he'll win, and then I'll go on Twitter and I'm like, he could win. It's so weird. I didn't think he'd win the first time.
I didn't think so either. But that's the thing. The polls seem like it's favoring Biden, but they did that with Hillary as well. So I don't trust anything.
Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting.
For sure. Should we get into?
Let's get into it, girl.
This is called Let's Get Into It.
Let's get into it.
So, let me see. A lot of Dennis P was like, our audio is shit. Thanks, Dennis.
Dennis, we are aware of it. Thank you. I did try buying a microphone to put into my computer, a new microphone, and it said that the CPU usage was too high. So my computer went nuts. And then I had my computer and my phone and everything on top of the pillows that Zuzu sleeps on, and she almost knocked everything over because she has to go sleep like a little angel.
This is what I want to say. If you want better sound, Venmo Adrian money.
Well, I'll get a computer. I just don't want to spend $2,000 right now while I can't really work.
Yeah, there's no income coming in. This one's from Matt G.
Okay.
He texts us a lot on Instagram and emails. He goes, in the past, y'all touched on the hilarious topic of the awesome love that is only known to the codependent heroine couple. Please expound on that topic and or maybe compare it to regular love. Also, Sarah, a few months ago, you said you would update us about your AIDS, Gary. Did you find out something and it was sad and that's why you didn't say anything? Okay, first of all, I haven't found out anything about that guy remember I was telling you about that guy that I worked with, Gary, who had HIV?
Yes. Oh, the guy that was a waiter?
Yeah. I haven't found out, but I can probably find out pretty easily from one of my coworkers if he's still around.
He probably is, because a lot of people can live with AIDS now for a long time.
Oh, yeah. It's just like, I think you just have to have the right concoction of medicine.
This just reminds me, because we brought up AIDS, and I remember when I went to that gynecologist, I asked him if I had AIDS, and then he said no. It's very hard for straight white women to have AIDS. And then he said his brother was one of the first cases of people that had AIDS.
Wow.
Died. One of the first people to die from AIDS, I think, back in the 80s. And then he said his son was also gay. And I said, were you disappointed by that? And he said yes. Which is, I actually liked the honesty, because I don't think people are honest. And he was like, he's like, I love him. He's like, I was a little disappointed, but, I love him and I accept him. And then I asked him if his son was upset that he votes for Trump. And he said, no, he's also a Trump supporter. They're called log cabins or something. I don't know. But that's what he told me. This is what I was talking about while he was in my vagina.
Just
rooting
in there.
Yes, I just thought it was interesting that, speaking of AIDS.
Well, Tim Dillon is gay.
HIV positive?
No. No. That would be
okay.
quite the story. We just break it here on Vadge.
No, he does not have AIDS, guys.
Guys, he does not have AIDS.
Don't go spread that.
But I know he votes left, but he can really, like, when you listen to him, you're like, he could probably go right if it's the right candidate.
I'm surprised. I thought he was definitely a Republican.
No, I remember him tweeting about, like, you should go vote for Hillary. He kind of broke his fourth wall of, like, that, like, because Tim always takes the side of the rich person, or he never goes on the
Yes.
side of the underdog.
Well, yes, and Tim also I think comes from like a wealthy family, so I
Yeah.
kind of get that.
He's really funny on
He's
Instagram.
very funny.
Yeah. Guys, go check him out and then tell him to do our podcast.
Oh yeah, that's right. I think didn't we both text him and he didn't answer either one of us?
No.
But did you text him also?
No, I didn't text him.
Oh, I think I did.
I think Joe may have done it, but he may have changed his phone number because Joe was saying he was just getting green messages.
Oh, okay. So maybe Tim doesn't hate us.
Somebody complained about I guess Teespring. She ordered from across the pond. She lives in England and ordered stuff, and it took forever. And I'm sorry, but we don't handle like the customer service part of our product store. Do you know what I mean? Like Teespring's a third party, and so any issues that you have with a Vadge project, you have to find out from them. But they don't make it easy, so I think I might take us away from Teespring and try to find another merchandise third party that does better with.
Did she say
service.
she eventually got it?
I think so. It might, from what I gather with during COVID, and then if you lived in like not in the U.S., that it took a long time to get your T-shirt.
I'm sorry.
She said ordered
That
a load of
sucks.
stuff from Atuska via Teespring. It took ages, got lost. She had to interview and to get it sent out, which I feel bad for. Do we think it will arrive? Anyone else ordered from UK? So guys, if you have any problems, let me know, and then I can switch companies, and we will no longer work with Teespring.
That sucks.
I know. That happens. I'll have to find out. I think Patreon's offering a merchandise store, so maybe we can check that out instead. This is Alexa from Patreon. Bobcat Goldthwait, whom I like, has accomplished so much in showbiz. People still want him to do the crazy voice that made him famous from the Police Academy movies. Okay, that's not a question, but
I thought he only had that voice.
no, he stopped doing that ages ago. I think because you're just like, I can't constantly. Can you imagine?
That's just not good for your voice. I remember,
No.
like, if I tried doing the old lady voice, I start, like, coughing after 5 minutes. It's just a lot on your vocal cord, I think. But I thought he just talked like that.
Yeah, I guess in the beginning he was like, this seems like a good idea. From what I heard, a lot of Boston comics hated him for that because he got success fast because he kind of stood out. And so there was a little animosity towards Bobcat. But then as over the years, he kind of moved away from stand-up and became really big in writing and directing movies that have like underground success.
I didn't know that. I still, to this point, you could tell how I'm following his career. I thought he still talked like that. I have no idea.
Well, he has a movie that I think you might like where I think Robin Williams was actually in it. He, something about his son commits suicide and he doesn't like his son's suicide letter, so he rewrites it for him, and then it becomes like this
That's
big
pretty
thing.
funny.
Yeah, it's something dark. Like he has a lot of really funny dark movies. Or that you have 6 months to live, and so when you find then you make a list of people that you want dead, and so you kind of like
Go on
a killing spree. I've always kind of wondered. I'm surprised no one that's been terminally ill has decided to take a hit out on the president.
I think it's probably pretty hard to get him.
I guess so.
Like when you go to the conventions and stuff, do you have to go through a metal
Metal
detector?
detector.
Metal detector. Well, I was going to say medical detector. Do you have to go through a metal detector? Because I think it might be hard to get a gun in. Although Republicans love guns, so it would be weird for them to say you can't have a gun.
I know. You could use that against him. But then I'm like, he's a lot of the time so far. Like, couldn't you just do a sniper hit? I love that we're trying to figure out how to kill the president.
I mean, I guess. I think it just seems like a lot of work. I don't know.
Most of that stuff you're like, I don't even know how to begin. That's so much energy to go for. I mean, it just seemed a lot easier in the 70s and 80s.
Well, yeah, when there's a parade and they're driving around in a topless, they're top down.
Convertible.
convertible car, you're like, it's gonna be pretty easy to kill this guy.
I know. It's like insane that we let JFK, but I guess after that, that's when they were like, all right, no more driving around with the top down.
Now you have to be in a Ford.
Yeah. Like a bulletproof car.
Yeah, honestly, I was just thinking about this. I know so little about Bobcat that I actually first thought he was Kinnison when you just said that.
Yeah, I think
Kinnison always screamed, so I think that makes more sense why I thought it was him.
Yeah. What did I ever tell you about? I was telling this with we were talking a few days ago about like why it's bad to name your kids after famous people or comics. So, because we were talking about how Amy named her kid Jean and then gave the middle name Attell after Dave Attell, but then it took to realize that it sounded like genitals, Jean Attell.
Mm-hmm.
So she changed it, and so I was just like, yeah, I guess that's like one. I was like, there's other reasons why not to name your kid after famous comics or people. And I have a friend there. He's a comic, and his wife, they met in stand-up, and they have named their kids after comics, and one is Kinnison. And then they have, I think their second kid's name is Cosby.
Oof. Can't you just say it's named after Cosby and Nash, whatever that group was?
I think that's Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Oh, shit.
Maybe Bing Cosby?
I'm really just confusing a lot of stuff today.
That's okay. But I'm like, you're like, we named our kid pre-40 rapes.
It's so funny, too, because everyone, they sound like they're white, right? That's something that feels like something white people would do. And they think they feel like they're so progressive naming their kid Cosby, and now they're like, no, you just look like you're pro-rape. So what a weird turn of events that is. And somebody in their family was like, I don't know, man, don't name your kids after comics. And they were like, we're going to do it. And now that's their fate.
I know that happens a lot when you like your friend will I have a lot of friends that name their kids, and you're like, after you leave and you're driving in your car and you're like, why? Like, why would you?
I had a friend that was having a baby. This is many years ago, and he wouldn't tell me the name. I was like, what is the big deal? Just tell me. And then he finally told me, and it was such a bad name that I was like, fine. I don't know why you would make up a terrible name. And then that was actually the name.
That's
so
crazy.
Ugh. I know. And I was just like, oh, I thought you just made up that awful name. And now I realize that it's your kid's dumb name.
Because there are times when people tell you their kids' names, and then you're like, cool. That's going to be a problem. It's naming your kids.
That's terrible.
I would
After
just
famous people.
I think I would just stick to either fictional characters that can't rape afterwards or do anything horrible, or I would just stick to like your straightforward, either your biblical or just names that have been going on for centuries now.
Yeah, and also probably like don't name it after like a Huck Finn book, because those characters drop the N-word pretty frequently. So I'd say stay away from those fictional characters.
or any Quentin Tarantino character also drops the N-word quite a bit.
Yes. You're like, what about Tom? That's a good name.
Yeah, no. I feel like I would be so nervous telling my friends like what I'm going to name my kid. Because everybody has an opinion when you have kids, and so it's just like that's why I like understand that your friend was like, I'm not telling you, and you're like, what is it?
I know.
Like blah blah. What was it? Bartholomew or?
I can't even say it because then he'll know. I think it's an awful name.
Yeah.
But my reaction was just like, well, you didn't have to make up a terrible name. You could have just said you weren't going to tell me, and then that was just the name still. So.
Well, there's also like people that name their kids, and then you're like, oh, great. That's the 8th person this year that I've known name their kid Jackson.
Well, when me and my sister were going to have different names, and then people like on our block name their kids the same thing. Like, I was supposed to be, I think, Nicole or Amy. And then I think that was a very popular name when we were kids. Like, everybody was named Nicole.
Yeah.
Amy would have been nice just because it's short. Although, I guess...
I like Adrian.
I like it. It's just long, especially as a kid to write out. Especially my last name's so long.
Yeah, they should have, or like a short first name to even it out.
And then my sister got named after my uncle that was killed, and her name is not great. So I'm just like glad I was born first. It's like it's a name that I've never even heard of before, and I'm not even going to tell people. I'm going to see how good the internet is if they can find out.
Yeah, dox that information. Let's see how good your hacking skills are.
Well, don't put it out. My sister will be very mad at me.
Yeah.
But just email me and I'll tell you if it's right.
Yeah, I just think it would be so hard to name. Like, I think about that with like naming after my dad, but then my dad has Cedric Reginald.
Yeah, your dad has a black man's name.
we always love, like, we think it's so funny. We're like, Dad, not many people, I remember after a while I started noticing, I was like, what? It feels so weird that the only Cedrics that I see in the U.S. are black guys. And then it dawned on me.
Was your dad born in Africa?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was born in South Africa. But these are Celtic, I think they're Celtic names. But a lot of black people are named after Celtic names or Irish names too.
Yeah, I would think if he was born here, it would be a little bit weirder. Do you know what I mean? Just because of how racist everyone is here.
Well, I thought it was cool that my dad was a white Cedric.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mother's first two husbands were named Joe, which I guess is nice because then you're not calling someone by the wrong name.
Oh, God. Every now and then I still feel like I'm about to call Joe my previous boyfriend's name because they both have one syllable first names.
Yeah, I get that.
But
That's
I have
difficult.
to tell you, there's so many Joes on the East Coast because now my phone has the most Joes it's ever had in its phone book.
Joe's a very popular name. I had so many classmates named Joe growing up. I mean, Joey Hendon, Joe Criscolo. There's so many. I can't think of it right now because, like, I don't talk to half these people.
Joe DeVito. That's a popular name, it feels like, up here.
my other friend Joe, who probably, I won't say his last name.
And then there's
but there was like
Casey and JoJo.
All my life, I pray for someone like you, and I think
Babe, did they do
baby,
baby, baby, baby, baby, baby, baby, baby?
them or Boys II Men? And we're gonna get called racist, but they all have good voices. You can't blame me for liking
soul
artists that have good. Yeah,
I know. You know who we were talking about the other day that I feel like went underrated is Bone Thugs and Harmony.
La 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 la. It's the first of the month.
I mean,
that is a hard. It's a hard. They rap pretty quickly.
They look like they were gonna murder you, but had the most angelic voices.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to them. I'm sure somebody can tell us. I feel like they probably got rich, and then we're like, "Fuck this."
Yeah, this sucks.
The 90s. What a fun time that was.
The best of times. I was at a hotel. We went to they had a pool and they were playing the best 80s playlist.
Ooh.
That fun. I was like, I want to just have a hotel bar where it's just 80s bar and then on the screen we just play anything that was from the 80s, like Spuds McKenzie Bud Light commercials, and you have to wear bathing suits.
I hate those dogs.
Where your thong comes all the way up here and you have a really long butt. Didn't it seem like girls in the 80s had like super long
especially
butts?
on Baywatch, those like the cut was so high up. You're like, your tits might flop out of that.
Yeah.
'Cause it's so high cut. It's so weird how that show, like, how like hot was that show for a while? Like 5 to 10 years?
It was
And
I could not tell you.
Yasmin Bleeth.
Yes.
Yasmin Bleeth was so hot. And it's got to be weird, Pamela Anderson, to go on that show and be like so hot and idolized, and then like no one cares about you. It's just kind of sad.
Yeah, like she's kind of. Yeah, no, and also like none of those people have gone on to do anything. Well, they just have lots. She's just had lots of money. I think Yasmin Bleeth ended up having like a crystal meth addiction.
That makes sense. What happened to the main guy? Did he die?
David Hasselhoff.
I was gonna say Steve Hofstetter.
Yo, Steve Hofstetter does those heckle videos.
Yes, he does those heckle videos. No, the other guy, Hasselhoff.
It feels like Steve Hofstetter would do Baywatch because he's such a business guy. He's like one of those guys that like knows. He's like, I think he kind of has I've never met him, but just from all the stuff that he does, he has like a comedy slimeball business persona to me. And
yes,
so
everyone hates him.
Yeah, and he has like shows that he doesn't pay you, but he just puts your Twitter handle on there, and he's like, "You're gonna get a lot of Twitter followers."
Laughs USA. Okay, so how he got out of paying people for that is because I think it was branded as a news comedy show.
Oh, because your tweets would be like zeitgeisty or like,
I guess, or you would just be like promoting what's going on in the comedy industry, or I guess, and that's how he got away with not paying it. But then eventually he started paying people, I think, because everyone was just reaming him, rightfully so.
I mean, it's crazy. You can't have people do your show and not pay them. That's insane.
So when I first started doing stand-up, he and another guy had this I guess kind of like a comedy blog website that had information, and they ran a couple of shows, and he kind of was like, he used to do this thing which was kind of genius, but also like, I guess, I don't know. He would tell these kids at these colleges, if you bring me to your college, I'll give you $100. And that's how he got booked at all these colleges, by like kind of getting these kids to go to bat for him because he'd give them $100.
That's crazy.
And then one time my friend was like hanging out. This is in the early days of comedy where we were like barking for stage time. They said he was hanging out, and in front of like all these new struggling comics, he took out a bunch of checks and was like endorsing them and just being like, "Oh, I haven't had time to do this." But it's like such a big dick type of move. Do you know what I mean? Like where you're just like, "Oh, I need to sign, $10,000 worth of checks right in front of all these poor comics." And you're like, you could do that when you're taking a shit.
Yeah, it's like
now
counting your money.
Now is not the right time.
Yeah.
It's just not the right time. So that's kind of who he is. Although he has a pretty decent Zoom show I did. But
yeah,
he's not very well liked in the comedy community.
Yeah, and it's never like a thing like it's nothing like anyone can like take. You can't take this guy to court. It's just like one of the. It's like the same thing as like there's certain comics that they do fine and they're pleasant, but most people are like there's something about them that they make you go like this. Ugh.
The heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, and
or you're like, I'm just not into it.
Yeah, there's. I think the thing is it feels they're like climbery. I think the term.
Yes,
would be
and then
best.
he would like plant these hecklers, and then he'd release these heckler videos, and everyone was just like, this guy's a plant. This didn't happen organically. And he was like dubbed himself the best heckler shutdown. Like he would just, he thought he was like the best at it.
I know, but it's so crazy. And I understand why he would start doing that because those things are so popular. You know that we, on our Vadge YouTube channel, guys, follow us on our Vadge YouTube channel. We put up your video of that girl that got thrown out of the show. Remember that white girl?
Yes.
So we labeled it heckle because she was a heckler, and we taped some of the conversation back and forth. That video has 15,000 views. It's the rest of our videos maybe have 100 at the most.
That is news to me. First of all, I didn't even know this video was out there, and I didn't even know people were watching it. That's hilarious to me.
It's on our YouTube. Yep. I think we took it off unlisted, and so it came out of behind the play wall. So now people can see it on our YouTube channel.
That's hilarious.
I was going through all of our videos the other day because I was like, I should bring out some of the old ones behind the paywall so we can get more people to come to our YouTube channel. And I was going through the views, and I was like, what is this one that has 15,000? Because everything's like 80, maybe 25 people have seen this. And then I'm like, 15,000. And I'm like, I completely understand why like someone like Steve Hofstetter is like, I've hit gold. I can sell ad space if I start doing fake heckler videos.
Yeah, they're just like so not organic though.
Yeah. Well, it's like what we were talking about last night of we could probably set up like a string of Karen videos to go viral and people then find out that we've been faking all of this.
I watched a crazy case last night. I was up all night, so you just get into these like weird YouTube kind of video like sinkholes. What was this lady's name? I can't remember her name right now, but I think it was like Dahlia something. So she meets with her ex-boyfriend to try and put a hit on her husband. This guy goes to the precinct and they're like, "Okay, we're going to set her up."
Okay.
So they send somebody to talk to her about killing her husband, and the guy's like, "Hey, listen," like they talk about it. He's like, "I gotta let you know that like I'm not gonna have any more." And they're taping her. We're not gonna have any more contact. So right now, you need to let me know if you want this done. Like, 'cause there's no once it's done, it's done. She's like, "I'm 5,000% sure." They go over the plan. She's like, I think it was 6:30 in the morning. She's going to be at the gym. He walks the dog around that time. She said she was going to leave the back door open. She comes back I guess she gets a call and she comes to her house and she's like, pretty good actress, like pretty upset. Like, do you know what I mean? Like believable. And she's like, "I just want to go in and see my husband." They won't let her. She's hysterical crying. They bring her back to the precinct. They start questioning her. And at first they're like, "Do you know anyone that, would want to kill your husband?" And she also got the husband to sign over the house to her because he had been in jail before and he had some type of some probation. And before he just like went on her word and signed the house over to him. Like a couple days before this is happening. So she's like, "Do you know anyone that would try and do this?" And she's like, "No." And then finally after a while they're like, "Hey, we're going to cut to the chase here. We know you set up your husband to have him killed. We have video of you doing it." They play it for her. And I've never seen anyone go, "That's not me." Like, it was so crazy that she's like, "Well, that's not me," or "I didn't say that." She's like, "I didn't say that." And they're like, "Well, we have you saying it." She's like, "But I didn't say it." She's like, I just want to make my phone call." Who do you think she calls with her one phone call?
I would assume her lawyer.
She calls her husband. And he's like, "What do you want?" And she's like, "Oh my God." She's like, "You have to get me out of here."
It's crazy. They have
Crazy. I've never seen anyone. He's like, "What are you, insane? You tried to have me murdered." She's like, "No, that's not true. I wouldn't do that. You know I wouldn't do that to you." And he's like, "What do you want?" He goes, "Even if I wanted to, I can't get you out. You tried to have me killed." And she's like, "Baby, you know I would never do that to you. Come on, you have to come get me out of here." And he's like, "I'm not coming to get you out of there." She goes, "You're not even trying." So she turns around and is mad at him that he wouldn't come get her out of prison. It's the craziest thing. So he goes, "I saw the video. I saw you tell this guy how to kill me, what time to kill me." And she goes, "You know I would never do that to you." And she goes, I know." And she goes, "I know." She goes, "I know you saw that and I saw what you saw, but that wasn't me and I would never do that to you." Like, it was the most, you see something and someone makes you think you're going insane. That's what she did.
Yeah, but it's like someone like Trump or like dealing with somebody that's I guess that she would be what you would consider a narcissist.
Yeah,
And
it was like
it's so
some type of thing like
effective
that.
to never, even if there's so much video evidence of you perpetrating that crime, if you just deny, it's so hard to like fight against it.
The reason why I brought it up is because when you were talking about staging videos, her defense team came up with this idea that they said the husband was in on it and he wanted to be an actor. And they set this all up so that he would be on TV and could break like that. So that's why when you said that, it made me think of this case. And you're like, it's a crazy way to get famous.
I know. But it's like, I mean, it feels kind of effective in a weird way. Because just think of like how
That's true.
this sounds really bad, but like the victims of that Parkland shooting, how they just skyrocketed into fame with like uh, lots of Twitter followers, where you can gain success from tragedy. That
You
it
had that really funny joke about it. I don't know if you ever did it on stage.
I don't think so, because I get so worried about somebody thinking that I'm shitting like on their tragedy, but I'm just making fun of like how sick we can get of uh like victims too can get like huge success by not doing anything.
What was the joke? Do you feel comfortable saying it on here or no?
No, I can say it on here. I just don't remember. I remember
Oh, shit.
making an observation about that, but now I can't even remember. I'd have to go. Maybe it's on my Twitter.
Well, I know you said something, this wasn't part of that joke, but about how all those, like, victims of that should just get, agents and
Yeah.
stuff.
Like we should just hang out. If you're an agent, you should just hang out outside of school shootings and then
And
give your
hope that something
card
happens.
to the hottest teenage kids that come out running out of the school. Be like, hey, you've got a career on your hands. I could spin this to something.
So kind of like ambulance chasers.
Yeah, it is almost like that. Well, it just feels like, just think of like how I still know Divine Brown's name, the prostitute that Hugh Grant blew.
I have no idea who that is.
Remember when Hugh Grant got arrested somewhere on the Sunset Strip because he hired a female prostitute to blow him, and it was Divine Brown. That was her name.
It's so crazy that like a famous person like that couldn't just get someone to blow him. But I guess with a prostitute, it's like a clean cut deal.
Yeah.
Like they're not trying to fuck you because they're gonna you're gonna get them famous. It's just like an exchange. You're just gonna blow me and then it's done.
You get the money, and that's the ordeal that we have, and then that's it. Like I understand that, rather than like doing it and then the girl comes out and is like, I blew Hugh Grant, and then uses it for her own success. Like Divine Brown was never. I don't even think she went on like talk shows to talk about blowing Hugh Grant. It's like Dave Chappelle had that joke about Monica Lewinsky like blowing Bill Clinton and being like, go in there and be somebody.
That's really funny.
Like she blew up from that scandal, and she's well known, and so many people still follow her on Twitter, and has like a book deal and.
Well, what's sucky about it is like I think we briefly talked about this a couple weeks ago because I watched some documentary about it. And was it Linda Tripp? The one that tricked her? Yeah. Linda Tripp is a dumb cunt. Mm-hmm. And the fact that she used this young girl's being naive and trusting her, and like really used it against her just to create something for herself is so fucking shitty. Also, if that happened today, people would like march in the streets for Monica Lewinsky, but back then we just slut shamed her.
Yeah.
We're like, you're a fucking whore, you blew the president, and now that would just never fly. She just like fucked the wrong president in the wrong time. Yeah,
she was it was tragic. Like she could have been lauded a sexual hero now.
But it's like everyone made fun of her, but imagine the president liked you and gave you any attention.
Yeah, well,
stop it.
Being like, if a president did that now, although I don't even think like people wouldn't even bat an eye if he had been blown in the office right now.
No. But you know what? Even if Trump liked any girl right now in the Oval Office, everyone would still be like falling head over heels from him just because it's the most powerful person in the country. He's not attractive, but just like having the most powerful person wants your pussy. And you're like, that's amazing.
That's kind of like every now and then I'm like, I used to be like kind of attracted to Simon Cowell, and you're like, that guy is not attractive nor like a good dresser. But yet, because he's
not
like
unattractive, though.
He's not unattractive, but he's not somebody, if he wasn't in the position that he's in, that you would even probably think twice about.
I was more of a Randy fan. I'm just kidding.
Randy was nice.
Yeah, but I hate that he called everyone dog.
Yeah. But like, it feels like with Simon Cowell being like, that was absolute shit. That you're like, oh, I want his approval.
I want his approval.
Yeah. It always feels like those guys in those positions of power end up having like, you're like attracted to them.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think we were shitty to her.
Oh yeah.
I'd like to have her on also. I'm gonna reach out to her.
Well, if we can't even get Luis Gomez to reply to our DMs.
Yeah, I mean, that's tragedy. I guess we could talk to him about it on Skankfest in March of next year if it happens. We could be like, hey, we both texted you to do the podcast.
Yeah, I thought, why you shouldn't have a problem saying no to women. Like you say, you like yelling at women. So I feel like this would have been your chance.
Your opportunity to just talk over both of us. I like Lewis. He's funny.
I do too. He's so good. He's really good on Twitter.
He's great on Twitter. I can't wait till he gets into a fight with somebody in his new neighborhood.
Oh yeah,
because he just bought a house somewhere.
I know his house looks amazing. It's just funny to see. It looks like a suburban house. To think that like Luis Gomez is in the suburbs.
Yeah, I think everyone is moving out of New York City and going to like. I mean, look, if you have the money to, why not? Because right now you could probably get a pretty good deal on a house because the economy's tanking. So if you have some money and can take advantage of that, it's smart. You and Joe should just buy a house.
Well, you know what's funny? Somehow I think some of the housing markets in certain cities have gone up because of the pandemic because everybody moved out. So now they know that they can drive the prices up because my friend Ashley was telling me she likes to go on Zillow and fantasize about getting a house in Wilmington, North Carolina. And she said their houses have increased by $40,000 in the last 6 months.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So we
I
can
think
end on
everyone.
Oh, sorry.
I think everyone is on Zillow. It's like everyone's porn.
Yeah, it is. I look at houses.
I go walking in Larchmont and I'll just guess what the house is and then look it up and see how far off I am.
And then you're like, how many shows do I have to do? How many bar shows?
You could probably buy a pretty cheap house in Manhattan right now.
That's true.
You guys could have a whole penthouse somewhere.
A brownstone for about $140,000.
That would be a steal.
Super steal.
Wait for the economy to totally tank. It's gonna happen.
Oh, I'm all for that. Well, like, do you think New York's dead?
Oh, I read the whole Seinfeld thing.
Yeah, and the Altucher thing, who has a club that never put any money or got people to come to it.
So let's explain to people who aren't aware what that is.
Okay.
What's that guy's name? Altucher. I don't even know what it is. He basically wrote an article was it in the Times where he said like New York City's dead, it's never coming back. And then Seinfeld wrote in response to him kind of like, not go fuck yourself, but like, you're full of shit. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, you just kind of left New York City and you couldn't deal with it, and New York's going to come back. Also, though, I'm sure Seinfeld also went to one of his other houses and is probably not in New York City currently.
Well,
do you know what I mean? So, like,
yeah, both of those guys are extremely rich.
Extremely rich, and I get it. If I had a second place to go to, I would definitely be out of here.
Yeah.
So I do think New York City is going to come back. It's going to take a while. First of all, we're not even done with COVID. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're not done with COVID. We don't know how much longer this is going to go on for. There's so many businesses that are closed. First of all, my favorite store, yesterday I was like in mourning. My favorite store, Lord & Taylor, is closing.
Oh, no.
Yes, that has been a family staple where me and my mom, who don't have a lot of money, would go there and just buy boots or sandals. That was our favorite place for like 15, 20 years. So it was a hard day for me. I'm very upset. I felt like someone died.
I had no idea.
I felt like somebody died. It was very upsetting. But yeah, a lot of stores are just not going to be able to take this hit from. First of all, there's so much competition already online shopping, and then just with places being closed for months, I think a lot of places are going to close. And then you have all these restaurants that haven't really been able to do indoor dining in New York City. So it's just like New York City is going to be a mess for a long time. I think if you're whoever's rich should just buy a bunch of shit in New York once it like fully tanks, because it will be back. It just might take. It's going to take time, I think.
Yeah, it's weird because when last Sunday we were in Central Park hanging out, and then I did I ended up doing, I think, 2 shows out there. So I was walking around Central Park. And when you're walking around, you're like, it doesn't feel like anything's different. It's really weird how you can have moments where you're like, everything's fine. And then there's times where you're like, no, it's like we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Well, as soon as you go on social media, you know everything is not fine. But yeah, if you were just like a homeless person right now, you probably didn't even know about the pandemic for a long time. Imagine being homeless right now without a phone and having no idea what's going on in New York City.
I know they must
That's
have
gonna
known something in Midtown when they're like, where is everybody?
Yeah, they're like, we're bringing in a lot less money right now. What is going on? They want New York City to come back so they can just get money from everyone. Who are you actually asking for money in that situation?
I have no idea. And I don't get spot pay anymore, so I have barely any cash on me most times.
Yeah. I think it's just going to take a long time for New York to come back. It will be back, though.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about it yet.
There's too much money here to be made, so eventually it'll come back. I don't know. People are saying there might be a vaccine in January, though, so who knows?
Hopefully.
Maybe we'll be back sooner than... Yeah, maybe we'll be back sooner than we think, or maybe this will go on for the next 10 years.
God.
Although
we're getting used to it. I don't mind wearing a mask around town. I guess you just can't do, like, work in an office for an extent. Or do the inside bar shows is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, not really being able to do the clubs. There's a lot of stuff that's a bummer, but I guess you just kind of adapt to it. But a lot of places are not going to be able to survive. So
yeah.
I don't know. It's going to be...
But we are, baby.
Yeah, I think like 30 comics should just go in. Not 30, that's a lot. 10 comics should just go in and buy a big house and live in it. I mean, obviously I can't, but a bunch of comics that have money could do it.
Hopefully, guys, join us on Patreon. We do a lot of great stuff on Patreon, and a lot of people have been replying to us saying that we're on a roll lately.
I mean, I think we're hilarious. I think the problem is nobody knows who we are. So
exactly. Well, I did a little interview at Marfa today for their public radio. So I think we're going to get a lot of new Patreon members from that.
From the Republic Radio?
Yes.
Yeah, that already sounds like they're going to hate us.
No, it's just their it's public radio. Like a PBS.
They said Republic Radio.
No, public.
I was like, that sounds very not in our crowd. Although, it's weird because, like, people on the right are just, I don't know. I would say I'm probably more in the middle. Do you know what I mean? Like, people on the far left and the far right are both crazy. I don't know why there hasn't been any, like, strong third party to really rise out, especially with everything that's going on right now. That's crazy to me that there's no third party that's strong enough to be like an actual contender.
Oh yeah.
And I know somebody's gonna be like, there's Frank Sars or whatever, and you're gonna be like, I don't know who that is. Like, if I don't know who you are, I'm not watching any of this. Like, I haven't watched any of the. Have you watched like the RNC or the DNC or any of that stuff? The conventions.
No,
I haven't watched any of it.
I just kind of follow it on Twitter, but I have no idea what's going on right now.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I'll watch the debates because I think it's going to be really funny watching Trump just say whatever he wants to Biden. Yeah.
And Biden's
That's
just like
thing.
A fumbling guy.
I think Trump can really win if he just obliterates Biden. Like, it's going to be hard to vote for a guy who just, like, is halfway in dementia. Like, so I think it's going to be an interesting, and I get it. The left wants somebody in the left there because, they're going to appoint Supreme Court justice. There's a lot of stuff that you need to have someone on the left, but it's like Biden's just not. The Democrats just don't put up good candidates lately. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But part of me is like, I don't even know why we do debates because it didn't even matter last time.
I don't know. I thought it was funny that Trump brought to the debates like 3 of the women that Clinton had like sexually assaulted. That's a weird power move to just be like, I'm going to bring 3 women there that you've sexually assaulted.
Insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I kind of have to wrap it up. The
thoughts of the day.
The thoughts of the day. I have no thought. I have no thoughts. Maybe I like the idea of making fake Karen videos.
Ooh, we can make some fake Karen videos.
Guys, just be true to yourself and join our Patreon.
Yes, guys.
Treat
Leave some nice
yourself.
messages for ourselves. Follow us on Instagram.
Email us at vadgepodcast@gmail. Leave a nice review. That's always nice. These are little things that you can do for your economy.
These are things that are really going to bring New York City back.
Yeah.
So if you want to see New York City thrive again, just leave us a couple of nice comments. Tell your friends to listen to the podcast. Tell them that there's no one funnier. Even if you don't believe it. I'm okay with people lying for us.
You can lie. I have no idea. It doesn't even matter. Or just say that we do it naked on Patreon.
Yes. You could definitely do that. And say Sarah, because Sarah has a really hot body.
I have a really
say I'm just holding the camera and directing. I'm just spraying you with cooking spray so you roast in the sun.
Although my sister shot we did a little beach ball choreographing in the pool yesterday to My Little China Girl by David Bowie, and I watched the video and you're just like,
that sounds very racist.
It is. Like you turn on and I'm just doing Chinese eyes in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, do all that stuff. We'd appreciate it.
Did you like the video?
Me?
Yeah.
No,
I cut you off because I'm a dumb cunt.
No. I didn't even know that you cut me off. I had no idea. I thought we were just done. No, I'm in it. I'm dancing in it with beach balls, and then Joe comes across it. But I was in my bathing suit, and it's one of those things where you're feeling good about yourself, and then when you see a photo of yourself, you want to just shoot yourself in the face.
But that's not reality because you have a nice body. That's just like not
mean, but like, don't you? I get this all the time when you do a show, and somebody's like, "Here are the photos from the show," and you're like, your arm from the angle looks big, and you're
making a dumb face and your eyes are closed and you're like, hey, can you just not post that? And they're like, sure. And then it's everywhere. And you're like, hey, can you not post a video of me looking like a retard? And they're like, sure. And then and then that's the photo they use when you have like a TV credit and that's your photo they use.
They're like, hey, just make sure you tag the photographer. And you're like, why? This is awful.
You're like, tag the photographer. If I find out where he lives, he's dead. Do not tag the photographer, please. I'm mad at that guy. Tag him so I can write him an angry letter. All right, guys. Sarah, have fun in Marfa. I don't know what that is. I'm hoping you're on a beach somewhere, but you told me you're in the desert.
I'm in the desert.
Well,
and then have fun in the Bronx.
Yeah, I'll try. I'm gonna go back to sleep since I had slept for 2 hours.
Okay.
Guys, we love you. Thanks for your support. Yeah. Stay strong out there. We love you, and that's it.
Yeah, Vadge on.